and then we'll get into the slides and everything. So obviously the guys who've done this before, Aaron and John, these will obviously be similar ones that you've gone through last time. But if you have any questions specifically that you want to ask, then feel free to do so. And any questions that you guys like have through this, you can either obviously come off of mute and ask it, or feel free to ask in the chat as well. Like anything you want to know. Obviously, I'll go through the questions that are in the Facebook post that I put out as well, because I know a few guys of you in here had specific questions on that too. But yeah, let's get into this first week. So John is saying your stream is quite shaky for me. Is my camera okay, guys? Is it, or is it might be you, John? But yeah, if it carries on, John, maybe just rejoin, like jump off and rejoin. That might work. Right. I'm just going to share my screen and just let me know when you can see it as well, guys. Right, turn, share screen. Just drop us like a thumbs up or something when you can see this one. Sweet. I think we're all good. Awesome. Cool. So, right, first week. Hopefully you've all got your plans. If you haven't, I've done a bad job and not sent everything over as I should do. But I'm pretty sure you all do because you've all been messaging back and really active as well, which is great, by the way, guys. Like being active, asking questions, that is the whole point of this whole process. Like I want you to ask things as we go through and just be open to like asking me questions, however big or small. All right. Use the Facebook group, use the message in there because that ultimately is how you're going to learn through this process throughout the whole thing. Okay. So basically, this first week is all about setting yourself up for success because what I don't want to do too much, and probably there's some of you already in here that might be somewhat like a little bit overwhelmed with everything that's there. You've got protein goals, you've got calorie goals, you've got training targets, you've got cardio, and there's a lot of numbers that are now like all here, and you're like, what should you now do with them? Okay, so I'm going to kind of run through that and talk about the important things. Obviously, we'll talk about any specifics and everything that come through as we obviously get deeper into this. But this is all about setting yourself up for success. Okay, now when it comes to obviously success, like the first thing we really want to focus on in week one is nailing the calories. Okay, the whole point of this process is balance. And that's really going to be predominantly done by controlling your calorie intake and making sure that you know exactly what you're eating, what's coming in, and we're managing that. So at the minute, obviously, your motivation is probably going to be quite high. So you're ready to start. We're all fired up for tomorrow. We're all ready to get going. And getting a good first weekend will not only obviously to you feel like a good success, but it will set you up for the long term as well. Because that then spirals on to week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 7, and onwards as well. So one of the things I really would recommend you do is get your calories pre-logged for next week roughly. Okay. Now you're not going to be able to plan every single meal. And I get that entirely. You might have things going on next week. You might have social events. You might have whatever coming up, and you might even not even have the food available. But basically pre-log in what you know you roughly can do into your day. So for some guys, this might mean preempting what you're maybe going to pick up as a meal deal from Tesco. And that's obviously not the most ideal situation, but that's better than not doing anything. There might be obviously pre-logging what you intend to make for lunch the next day. You might not have it ready in the fridge, ready to go, but then you've got the intention there of having that food, which then matches your calories for the day. So the more you can pre-plan, the much better success you'll have when it comes to just sticking with your fat loss targets. For me, when I'm dieting, I'll basically pre-plan breakfast, I'll pre-plan lunch, any snacks. My dinner will be the thing that varies, but I'll tend to leave a really good chunk of calories available for it. So if it is more calories than I think it's going to be, then it's not going to take me over at all. And that's one of the things I would really recommend that you do. To just pre-plan it is a real big key part to the whole process. Okay. And even if it does go downhill, planning really helps because you've set that intention. And that's what this is all about, is setting the intention to actually do well rather than just going about your day with no idea what you're doing. This is how you're going to obviously just be successful with this. Okay. And again, if you've got social events coming up, you can bank calories for them. If you know you're maybe going out on, say, Friday or Saturday, you can then look at your week and think, I know I'm probably going to need more calories. Can I take 100 off of each day and then add them onto that day too? So this is why that pre-planning and just setting yourself up with the calories for the week as a whole can be really, really helpful in that aspect. Okay. So that's obviously pre-planning with the calorie side of things. Now with training, what I want you to... Oh, we've got a question here. Don't think so. No, it's just someone that wasn't on mute. Sound. So with training, basically, if you can set the intention of when you're trained for the next week, try and do that. I know it sounds really simple and probably sounds like I'm trying to tell you to suck eggs, and I don't want that ever to feel that way. But grab a diary, plan your week out, when you're going to train, when it will happen, and you're more likely to get it done if it's blocked out time. If you're going into next week with no idea when training's going to happen, no intention of what day it's going to happen on, the likelihood is it's probably not going to happen because we're not going into that week and thinking, okay, actually, this is when I'm going to train. This is when everything's going to get done. So basically, set the intention, get it in a diary, get it in your planner. The more blocked out it is, the more it's going to happen. Okay. With week one and training, obviously, some of you are training at home, some of you are training in a gym. So don't get overwhelmed by like the numbers that you initially need to go into. So your first week, I want you to basically just test out the numbers you can do within the rep ranges you've been set in your plans. Log them for next week and then try to improve. That's all I want you to do. So don't worry too much if you find like it's too easy or it's too light. The next week will obviously be able to improve that. Okay. And that's essentially how you'll get better with your training. You'll get so one thing just to note with your training, so you should be getting close to failure with most of your sets. And obviously failure for everyone is very different, but this kind of means you can't really get any more than 1 or 2 more reps when you're finishing a set. So let's just say you're on like a machine chest press. So failure for most people is when it starts to move really slowly and you're getting up to the top and you've really got no more, that's probably failure for most. If you're getting to the top and you've still like, it's really easy, you've probably got loads more reps to do. But this is something you'll gauge as you go through this program. I don't expect you to be perfect, but just build on that as we go through each week. Okay. So some things to look out for this week with your weigh-ins. Okay. Because I know this is a big thing we all sort of look at and think, oh, if my weight's not moving up, why is it not working? Or if it's moving too fast, is that a bad thing? Now, this is obviously going to vary between all of you due to various reasons. Some of you obviously weigh more than another person. Someone maybe works night shifts. Someone maybe has saltier meals than another person. So please don't worry if in the first week you don't lose as much weight as someone else. It is all relative to many different reasons, okay? So I don't want you feeling like you should be losing more or less than another person. And this is exactly why the photos and the measurements in this first week are really, really important for us because that gives us another thing to look at through this whole process. We're not just looking at what the weight is on the scale. We're looking at how are your measurements, how are your clothes fit in, how do you feel in yourself, what do your photos look like, are they changing? So all of these things will build up to a bigger change, okay? And for now, just trust the process with the calories and I've set you. I will make changes if I need to, okay? So this first week is all about seeing how you respond to the calories I've set, the steps I've given you, the targets with training. And then from that, I can look at that and think, okay, what do we need to change for the next week? Do we need a bigger change? Is there anything we need to work on specifically? So just trust that process as much as you can. Some days you're going to feel like it's not working. Some days you'll feel like it's been
in the ad.
Trust that as much as you can. Okay. Now, another thing to look out for on MyFitnessPal is the entries. Okay. So when you're scanning your foods into MyFitnessPal, just double check the packaging to see what's coming up on your app. We can all like kind of scan foods in on MyFitnessPal and it comes up with something really random and think, oh, that's a good entry. But if it doesn't match with on the pack, then it's not that accurate. Okay. So some stuff you'll scan, and especially like Aldi and Lidl, if you shop there, I know obviously I think Justin, you might not have those over in the States. You could correct me. I don't know if you've got Aldi and Lidl over there, and John as well. But they can be a bit crap for some of the times when you scan them in or put them in. It'll come up with just something totally random. So whatever you're scanning in or putting into your app, just make sure that it is the same as obviously what's being logged in there. Okay. Now John says we have Aldi. Cool. Try and avoid weighing in cups. Okay. When you're weighing cups, it's really inaccurate. A cup of rice is completely different, probably the different times you do it. A cup can be this big with like a heaped amount on top. It could be, obviously, you might even only fill half the cup. And obviously, you might not even have a cup as a measurement. So please weigh in grams where possible. Okay. It will feel annoying logging this all. So it will feel like a ball ache. Okay. But once it's in, it's in. So once you've got it in your diary and you've got the food in that you're going to probably repetitively eat over time, it's in then. You don't have to keep scanning it all the time. So when you first put in like your veggies, when you first put in your oil for your food that you may cook with, when you first put your yogurt in, it's going to be annoying and it's going to seem a bit tedious, but you should only spend 5 minutes a night just planning in your food. And then once it's in, it's really quick to just keep adding things in throughout the day. Okay. And just be 100% honest with your estimations with your food. Okay. If you're maybe having a piece of cake and there's not the calories for it on the app, pop a message into the Facebook group. I'll help you estimate it. If not, and you've maybe taken your own sort of advice and put it in, then just make sure you're honest with it. A slice of cake isn't going to be 50 calories. It's probably going to be more like 350 calories. So the more honest we are with our food, the better chance you'll have of obviously losing fat. Okay. And like I said, just use the group with help on estimations if you need to as well. Okay. Now, a couple of things to look out for. We're getting protein in. So you'll feel full if you've not been tracking protein before this week. So if you've come into this week and you've not been tracking calories, or maybe you have and like it's been a bit on and off, you will feel full from the amount of protein that I've asked you to get in. I'm not asking you for super high amounts. You all have a range with your protein. And as long as you're between that range for the day, then I'm happy. If you fall slightly under, that is still fine. I just want you to make the best effort to hit the range that I've set you through this week. Okay. That's the key part of this process. Okay. But I still want you to try and get towards that. If it means that it then takes you over for your calories for the day, then obviously you'll come under your protein, because the calories is the primary thing that I want you to aim for. But as a goal, if you can get your protein in with your calories being where they need to be, then big tick in the box. Okay. So things like shakes, things like protein bars, ready packaged meat, eggs, protein yogurt, Skyer and Greek yogurt. These are like my go-tos that I use basically every single day. Okay. You'll find that a lot of your foods will have decent amounts of protein. So your dinner will be high in protein, but your lunches, you might just need to swap those around. If you're used to only having sort of maybe some toast with a little bit of ham on it for lunch, you'll quickly see that that's probably like 15 grams of protein and maybe 400 calories, which is okay. But in the grand scheme of things, that's probably then going to mean your protein is going to be under for the day. So you'll just have to start making better choices about how much filling you use or how much you sort of have through the day of different protein products to get obviously your targets in. Okay. And again, just to like say it again, the pre-planning just makes this whole thing easier. I've tracked for probably 10 years now, and I've got a lot of diet experience to the point where I probably don't need to, but I will still pre-plan when I'm trying to lose fat, because it means I'll hit my protein target without fail. It's quite easy to miss it if you're not thinking about it. And it's just so much easier to diet with higher protein. Your hunger will be probably the best it's ever been. Okay. So right, let's see what else we've got. So order of importance for this week. So let's talk about everything else. If you're still overwhelmed, let's talk about the order of importance with everything. Okay. So first things first, check-ins. So even if you've had the worst week known to man, it's been horrific. You've like not trained, your eating's been rubbish. I want to know. Okay. I can't help you if I don't know what's going on. Okay. So making an attempt to log the data, even if it wasn't perfect, is essentially what's going to help you through this process. Okay. So the more you do that, the better results I can get you, because I can look at your week and say, okay, we need to do this, we need to do this. This is what we're going to do for next week. I don't know if I'm not getting a check-in. Okay. The next order of importance is hitting your protein and calories. Obviously, calories becomes the highest importance, then your protein. So obviously, if your calories are done for the day and you're under on protein, just stop, and then the next day try and obviously get your protein up. With your training, that's obviously the next order of importance. Then it's your steps, then it's your cardio. Okay. So that's how I want things to run. Obviously, in an ideal world, we'd get it all done. That's really one of the things I want to make sure that we do. Get everything done through the week. You're going to get the best result if we hit our steps, we hit our cardio, we hit our nutrition. And essentially what will happen is you will get to a point where it just all clicks. Right now, it probably might not click, but in a week's time, a couple of weeks' time, things will click. You'll be getting great results. You'll be losing weight on a weekly basis, and things will start to obviously snowball in the way that they normally do. Okay. So any questions on that before I get into the questions that were on the Facebook group? I'll get them up ready. But if there's any, feel free to come off mute or just pop something in the chat and fire them away. I'm just going to answer John's questions while they're there. So he says, do you save your own recipe functions? So I don't. I should do because it would make it a lot easier. I would definitely recommend you save your common foods as a recipe. So if you have the same lunch or the same dinner, just save it as a recipe and you can just enter that one in every day into MyFitnessPal. Okay. Hope that helps, John. So is the cardio on the training plan? So if you don't have it, I've not put it on you. Some of you do, some of you don't. Okay. This is all just dependent on if you actually need it or not. Okay. So Alex, if it's not on your plan, you don't have it, mate. So you can do a little small fist bump in the air. But any questions through the stuff I've just gone through, please obviously let me know, guys, before I'll go into the other bits in a minute. Just so I don't go too much off on a tangent. No questions. Oh,
I've got one. So obviously before you train,
yes.
how important is it for you to obviously have your protein?
So it's less important than your overall protein goal for the day. So,
Okay.
like, for example, in the last diet I did,
Yeah.
first meal of protein was at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I had
Right.
trained, woken up, done work. So it's not that important in the grand scheme of things. The most important
Yeah.
thing, your end of day protein, is it being hit?
Yeah.
Okay. You could get into the minutia and the real specifics of it and say, yes, you must
Mm.
have protein when you wake up or you're going to lose muscle. It's if you're hitting your protein, you're training well, and your meals are fairly spaced out, you're fine.
Yeah. It doesn't really matter then. Just because I've like, so basically it's funny you're saying about planning your week out because I've done that now. And I've just obviously, because we're talking about protein and the shakes and stuff, at the moment I won't need to have any shakes
Yeah.
because I'd be pretty much hitting my protein goal.
Mhm.
So I was just wondering how important it is before you train. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So if you're hitting your protein goal, you don't need to worry about it, mate. Like about shakes and
Okay.
stuff. Like it's
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I would use whey protein as a way to hit your protein for the day. That's it. I
Fair
wouldn't
enough.
use
Yeah.
like you must use it before the gym or you must use it
Yeah,
after.
yeah.
There's no
Okay.
correlation between it being like a you have to take it type thing. Okay.
Yeah, cool.
No worries. Ryan has asked, I've used the Lose It app previously. Can I keep using it or is it preferred to use my Fitness Pal? No, mate, you can carry on using Lose It. Like I know there's a few guys in here that use NutriCheck as well,
Yeah.
and other apps. Like I'm not like someone who you have to use my Fitness Pal. It's just if you prefer to, then great. It's usually just got the most amount of stuff on its library, that's all. So it just depends what your preference is. Hope that helps, Ryan. Any other questions, guys?
So Jack, when you fill in the MyFitnessPal, is there another spreadsheet we have to fill in as well? With our
So not when
food
you
plan,
fill in
what we
my
have
fitness power. So my fitness power is just for you to keep an idea of the log of your calories for the day. And then what I want you to try and get into the habit of is at the end of each day, put in the protein and the calories you've had. So whatever the end of the day my fitness power numbers will be, put that into your coaching spreadsheets that you have access to
to.
with the
Okay.
dates and where you put your weigh-ins and everything on as well.
Yeah.
That will
Okay.
be
Thanks.
cool. Um, Right. So let's answer some of these questions. So Connor asked about the refeeds. Is it 1 day a week, any day you choose? Yeah, exactly that. So you all have a high day. Okay. So you all have obviously 6 low days and then 1 high day, which is that refeed. You can use it wherever in the week you want. The time I would recommend you use it is when you have a social event. So when you've got something coming up that is basically going to need more calories, save it for then, because it just makes a lot of sense to give yourself more food on that day. All right. Ash asked, I'm following the 3 day week guide. If I'm able to make the fourth, am I best doing a specific, I cannot say that word for the life of me, specific workout or just whatever I feel like doing? I would just probably do one of the ones from the 4-day workouts. That would be the best way I would go about it. And he's asked about calories and protein. So if he was 25 grams short on protein, should he overeat to hit that or stay under calories? Stay under calories, as I've mentioned. Okay. That's going to be this fail safe with everything. Your protein is obviously important, but your calories is like top tier. Okay. Justin, so you said, do we have to take a refeed day? So some of you might not feel like you want to, and I get that. And total honesty, you'll probably lose faster if you don't take it. You will lose fat faster if you don't have that refeed day because it's less calories. Okay. But it's all about preserving your energy through this 7 weeks. The deficits you're all set up on, they are aggressive. This is an aggressive 7 weeks. We are looking to lose fat fast, okay? Within reason, okay? You're not on like stupid, silly low calories, but you're on enough where we should lose fat at a decent rate. So that day of that high day is almost like a motivating day for you to work towards. And I want you to see it as like, okay, this is coming up. I'm excited for it. I'm maybe going to have something I'm looking forward to on that day. And then it is like a bit of a mental reset before the next set of 6 low days. Okay. So try and take it. If you really, really don't need it, then that's fine. Just know that you might be a little bit hungrier that next week. That's all. So Ben has asked, obviously I've got to hit the 2000 range and I have a habit of not eating much during the day. Is it okay if I hit the protein and I'm short on calories? So yeah, you can do this. So you can be short on the target I've set you, and you can always bank them for later in the week. But again, this basically comes into the same thing I've said. If you're under the calories and you're hitting your protein, you will just lose weight a lot faster. But that does tend to have a bit of a catch up where you lose a lot of weight and your hunger really drives up quite fast. So it's just the trade-off really. Like there's nothing wrong with under eating, but I wouldn't get into a massive habit with it. And he's asked about water intake. So what's the recommendation? So I think this was in the welcome pack, or it might be in the video library. So if anyone's not seen, the video library is in your drive where it answers a bunch of different questions on loads of different things. But essentially with water, so there's no like guide if you need to eat X amount of liters per day because it's so generic, like it's going to be different. The 2 to 3 liters that they recommend is not going to work for the busy labor out on site. The 2 to 3 liters that the person who works in an office and sits down all day probably might work. So it's all relevant to actually how much you go to the toilet and how many clear urinations you have a day. All right. So without getting too much into it, as long as you're getting like 3 to 5 clear urinations a day, you're sufficiently hydrated, essentially, rather than it being like, I need to hit 2 liters, see what it's like, and then take it up each liter from there. As much as that sounds obviously pretty minging, but that's the best way to go about it. Okay. So Linda, on your question about like legs, bums and tons. So I would count that as a cardio. Okay. Or I'm happy for you to count that as a training session as well. So if you don't want to do one of the resistance training, you can count it as either a cardio or a resistance training. So you can swap between the two if you want. Okay. So I'll let you take the rein on that depending on how many you do in the week. Okay. Obviously I'd prefer you to do the resistance and then maybe legs, bums and tons becomes part of your cardio. It just really depends what your preference is. But they can count as either through the week. Okay. And then with regards to like starting off the reps, a lot of this will be, so looking at your rep range, looking at what exercise we're doing like 1 or 2 tester sets and then taking the weight up from there. So like, for example, if you're going in on a random exercise, you're not sure, just start off where you feel you might need to do. If the rep range is way too easy after the first 4 or 5 reps, put it up a little bit heavier. And that's probably going to be where you need to roughly start. And that will go for everyone else as well. Like finding your feet in that first week will just be about getting a couple tester sets in, which I wouldn't count as your working sets. But then once you've found that weight, then you can do your 3 or 4 working sets that you've been set. Okay. And then Ollie was asking about creatine. Should you take it? Yes, if you need to. Like for some people in here, you probably don't need to warrant it too much. If you're going to take it, just take a creatine monohydrate 5 grams a day. But it's not a necessity. Again, if you're really into your strength training, you're looking to like really get as much strength as possible and like keep your power in the gym, creatine's probably a good idea. If you're not that fussed about that and you just want to feel a bit healthier and fitter, creatine is not really like the be all and end all. Okay. He asked about if I know I'm out for a meal and I'm likely to exceed calories, can the day before and after be reduced? Yes. So I want you to view calories as like a weekly balance. So you can, like, say you've got 2,000 calories a day over the course of the week. You go out for dinner and you nail 700 over your target. So you've gone 700 over your weekly target. You would then need to reduce by, sorry guys, I'm going to sneeze here. You need to reduce by like 100 each day around it to then make sure that your deficit is going to be fine for the week. So that's essentially how you do it. If you go 600 over on one day, you could then reduce by 300 the day before, or 300 after. That's essentially how it works. So weekly calories is one of the big things I would try and work for. And that's why I always talk about planning your week, because you can then at least make a best guess at things where possible. Okay. He asked about if I wanted to do more training or cardio, can we go for it? I would say at the minute, try the first week before doing more. I think there is always this thing, I can do more, I know I can do more. A lot of you are coming into this process without doing much right now. So rather than going in and doing like way more than you can shoot for, just try that first week and then we can always adjust it if we need to, or recommend that you do more. Okay. I don't want you just going full guns out in this first week. So James has asked about things like Yakult and Actimel, the no sugar versions. Are they recommended or a market media fad? Isn't most foods a market media fad now? I think we live in that day and age, unfortunately, where everything's logged as high protein, isn't it? Like high protein Weetabix, when they're just a load of crap, to be fair. Sorry to anyone that eats high protein Weetabix, they are just garbage. But Yakult and Actimel, obviously they're different for like different purposes. I probably would still have them, mate, if you do take them, because obviously they've got different bits for like your gut and they're in them. It's a bit different from like a high protein Weetabix. Okay, so feel free to carry on taking them, mate, especially if you've been taking them and you've noticed the effects of reduced bloating as well. Okay. And last question. So would it matter if I did cardio on different days or different sessions? So I would try and do them on separate days. So if you've been set 2 cardio targets, I would do one on one day and one on the other. But I get life happens, and this happens for a lot of you as well. Feel free to do what you need to on one day if you need to make it up. So if you've got 2 things you need to do on one day because you've not got time, or you need to go and do more outside of the gym, then that's okay as well. So it just basically depends on what you're doing through the week and what your priorities are. Okay. Cool. So I think that's most of the things answered. Any questions from the stuff I've just talked about then, guys, that anyone wants to ask at all? Who's going to come off mute? It's a good thing, though, if you've got no questions. It means I've probably answered everything. So that's good. So, right. So it's first day tomorrow. What I think I'd like for us to do now is let's have a bit of like accountability for tomorrow's food. So I'm going to put a post out in like half an hour's time, or yeah, I'll put a post out in half an hour's time. Comment in there with your day's food that you've got planned. Feel free to put the screenshots in there as well, and I'll have a little look through your foods and just give you some feedback on it. Let's just get some accountability for food that's planned out, so I can then just say, okay, you need to change this for that, or this is what we need to update for, and just give you some feedback on your initial food tomorrow. Okay, so that'll be something that we'll go away and do from here. And if there's any questions that any of you guys have, please let me know. Obviously, remember through this challenge, there's prizes as well. So first place, obviously going to get £250 for the best transformation. Second place is £100. And the person who is the most social on the program, who's talking about it, logging their journey, which if you're into that and like to be accountable by other things like that, which I know a lot of people are, then there's also a prize for that as well. So a little bit of incentive to push over the next 7 weeks. You could maybe even get paid for doing this. So, but yeah, any questions, guys, let me know. And I will hopefully catch you in the Facebook group through the week and obviously on next week's call as well.
Cheers, mate. Nice one.
Cheers, guys. See you then.
Have a good one. Bye.
Cheers.